Thank you. Right, all commissioners, just a reminder, I don't see anybody that doesn't have their video on, but if you don't have your video on, make sure that you do. Makes it a little easier for us to see who's talking. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. So I'm going to call this Planning Commission meeting to order on behalf of the City of Independence. Welcome to this virtual Planning Commission meeting for December 12th, 14th. Okay, start over. For December 14th, 2021. For the convenience of those participating in tonight's meeting, I'd like to remind all in attendance, both commissioners and the public, to please mute yourself when you are not speaking to prevent distraction and unwanted disruption. Staff will be enforcing this and monitoring those in attendance for questions during public hearings. During the public hearing portions of the meeting, staff will call on those who have requested to speak in the order that they signed up. Following that, anyone else who wishes to speak will be recognized. For those who wish to speak tonight, please remember to address all comments and questions to the chair and keep your comments brief and on point. And if you agree with a previous comment, please just simply indicate that you agree. To expedite tonight's meeting, I will ask those who wish to testify or believe that they might to please be sworn in. So all those who are on this call that would like to speak tonight, I need you, if possible, to unmute, to put your video on. At the very least, unmute. Raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer I do or raise your hand.
I do.
Thank you. All right, staff, will you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Ferguson?
Here.
Commissioner Michelle?
Here.
Commissioner Nesbitt?
Here.
Commissioner Wiley?
Here.
Commissioner Young? Commissioner
Here.
Young? Commissioner
Here.
Preston?
Here.
And Chair McLean.
Yes, thank you. Okay, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Commissioner Wiley? All right. We are ready.
Commissioner Ferguson? Commissioner Ferguson on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle?
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Preston?
Yes.
And Chair McLean.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to just announce the cases that are going to be continued. Case number 21-310-03, case number 21-112, and case 21-117 will all be continued. What is the date that they'll be continued to? Stuart or Bruce?
So the next regular meeting is January 11th, 2022.
Okay.
But case 21-112 will be continued to the January 25th meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we do not need to vote on that, correct? I don't need a motion.
Generally, we have, when we done consent agenda, items to be continued were all included in the consent agenda.
Okay. Okay. So the first public hearing was a case that was continued. It's case 21-200-08, a special use permit at 9300 East US 40 Highway, a request by Joseph Ciata to operate a used car lot. And I apologize if I got your last name wrong. City, will you give a report, please?
Yeah, momentarily. Miranda, I cannot share. It says to ask to the organizers to be able to share. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. The applicant is Joe Seta. This concerns a special use permit for vehicle sales at on the lot on 40 Highway. Looking at the vicinity map here, you can see that it's in that crux of property or just west of where the small taco, or east of where that small taco store is, in that crux of property between 35th and 40 Highway, sort of catty-cornered from Dixon's Chili, if you know where that is. So here's the property in question. You can see a little bit of Peak Drive that connects 35th and 40 Highway. The property here is located in this blue circle. The corridor here along 40 Highway is zone C2 general commercial. There's a little bit of multifamily zoning catty-cornered there to the northeast. Comprehensive plan sees this area right adjacent to a cluster of envisioned commercial intensity that's around the intersection of Blue Ridge Cutoff and 40 Highway. The aerial photo here gives a little bit more detail of the structures here. You can see that are located around. There's a medical device stored just to the east. You got some retail to the north. Got a gas station, or a former gas station with used car, I guess, sales to the south. And you've got the taco place to the west here, and a dollar or a Family Dollar up here to the northwest. And here's the site plan showing the existing 3 driveway setup along the wide right-of-way of 40 Highway. The applicant recently purchased the property at 9300 East US 40 Highway for a used car sales lot. Although it's been previously, but not recently, a used car lot. It's lost its legal nonconformity due to the non-renewal of the previous business license at the property being there 6 months prior to this application, more than six months prior to this application. The property includes a 432 square foot building, limited green space. Most of it actually is state right of way out front. Existing paved surface with 3 driveways onto US 40 and then one fenced off one onto 35th Street. The applicant has already repaved the asphalt surface recently and fixed the fences that surround the property. The applicant also intends to upgrade the exterior of the small building with stucco and paint and redo the landscaping with small trees and bushes to enhance the look from the street. But the property would still need a landscaping administrative adjustment since the existing configuration with all this impervious surface obviously cannot meet our current landscape code requirements. Given there is no new construction, no public improvements will be required, as the US 40 highway corridor has an abundance of used car lots already in operation. Staff is not recommending approval of any additional used car dealership for this area. Real quickly, I'll go through the neighborhood and then go through some recommended conditions if you were to decide approval. So this shows the existing nearby car lots, explaining staff's recommendation that this lot not be approved given the abundance already along the corridor. You can see going from just west of 40 highway back to the southeast toward the Gates barbecue area almost. Okay, so this is the 40 highway corridor looking to the southeast. And then this is the existing used car dealership that's across the street. This is looking up the hill toward Blue Ridge Cutoff, toward the strip center there where Dixon's Chili is and the other retail located there at the corner. This is looking at the building looking northeast onto the property. This is the small taqueria shop that's to the west of Peak Avenue. And this is east of the property, can't see artificial limbs. And this is another view of the building from its east side looking west. This is 35th Street from the back side in the driveway that comes out of the north of the building, looking off toward the Family Dollar up the hill. And residential neighborhoods to the north. And then down 35th Street to the east. And this is the neighbor immediately to the east, north of the medical equipment store. So staff does not recommend approval of this application, but if the Planning Commission decides to approve, it should be with the following conditions. In the parking and vehicle storage area, one of the spaces must be designated van accessible ADA space with proper markings and signage. No vehicles shall be displayed, stored, or parked in the right of way. The parking lot shall be striped in accordance with the UDO. At least 2 customer parking spaces shall be provided, or handicap spaces. 1 shall be van access, or 2 customer parking spaces. One of them has to be the van accessible handicap space with its marking and applicable signage. Number 5, parking lot and building landscaping must be provided in accordance with the UDO. Number 6, upgrade the exterior and paint. Number 7, for any trash removal service and the masonry trash enclosure must be constructed. And number 8, all site improvements shall be completed prior to a city business license being approved for a vehicle sales business. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any quick questions for the staff before we bring the applicant forward?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston?
I think it's no secret that I'm generally critical of car lots for obvious reasons. But I drove past this particular property, and staff, correct me, is this entire parcel paved?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think nearly the entire, let me look. I mean, there may be a little bit of green space on the east side, but all the green is really pretty much, there's a little bit around the fence area.
Okay.
Most all of it's in the right of way in the city.
Are we reading it correctly that this has been a car lot previously?
Yes.
And what in the strategic plan would be forecast for a potential use of this particular property if not a car lot?
Well, as we showed on the, I had already taken down the shared thing because I was moving on to the applicant's pictures that he was going to show himself. But as you notice, the drawing that was for the comprehensive plan, I noted that there was a cluster of commercial conceived of around the Blue Ridge Boulevard and 40 Highway area. Most of this property is actually designated as residential by that comp plan.
I'll reserve the remainder of questions for the applicant. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can we go ahead and bring the applicant forward, Miranda?
Hello.
Hello, how
Hello?
are you? Hello. Can you please state your full name and your address for us?
Joseph Saida, 10606 North Willow Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you very much. What would you like us to know about this project? I see we have pictures up, so that's helpful. Thank you. So tell us anything you want us to know about this.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm sorry I couldn't get my camera to come up and be with you on screen, but it's what I wanted to. I'm very vested in independence. I live at 10606 North Willow with my wife. I have a 12-year-old son. I grew up in Raytown. I've been around Independence, Kansas City, and Raytown my whole life. I've owned and operated several businesses in Kansas City and Independence for the last almost 40 years. I also own several commercial properties in Independence, Raytown, and Kansas City. These properties that I have up on the screen are all properties that I have bought in disrepair and have spent money redoing them. Actually, the first property is the shopping center. It's the Williams Plaza shopping center. I've put a new face on it and done a lot of things to it. I think it looks a lot better than it did when I bought it about 3 years ago. The one property to the right is the building over at Sterling and 40 Highway, or Sterling and Truman Road, which used to have the old burn up equipment in it. It actually sat vacant for quite a few years, and I ended up buying it, remodeling it, and actually me and a partner own the business that's in it now. I don't know if my other pictures are going to come up. The one to the left, the top one is the La Fuentes. I bought it about 12 or 13 years ago. I remodeled it. It was in very bad disrepair. All the windows were broken out and stuff. And I put La Fuentes in there, and then they ended up purchasing it from me. The building to the right is 3610 to 3620 Nolan Road, the gold buildings. They sat in disrepair for quite a few years, and I've gone through and completely remodeled them, and I have tenants in all but one space over there on Nolan Road. The building on the bottom, or the second building down, is the building across from Gates Barbecue. We've just completely renovated the exterior of it, stuccoed it, and put new faces on the top of it. The next building is 600 High Street, which sat vacant for a couple of years after I can't think of the name of the company that went out of business, but it's just had a brand new roof. It has all new stucco around it and new asphalt, and we put Santa Fe Glass. That's their warehouse for Santa Fe Glass now. I guess the whole point to this is I recently acquired that property over at 9300, and it had fallen into repair like these properties have. It had been a sales lot for almost 50 years. I purchased the property with the intent to return it to its former use. Given it had a license in there in the last couple of years, I immediately started renovations, which they've already said, and to date I've spent some $12,000 on improvements. I actually have about $50,000 in improvements planned for that property. I've already resurfaced and repaired the surface lot, and I've done upgrades to all the fencing and stuff, and I have we're going to re-stucco the building. It will look really nice when we're finished with it. If the Planning Commission decides to approve my application, I'm already committed to the following. In the parking and vehicle storage area, I'll ensure at least one of the parking spaces will be designated a van accessible ADA space with property markings and signage. No vehicles will be displayed, stored, or parked in the right-of-ways. I understand that's a huge deal. The parking lot will be striped in accordance with the city code. At least 2 customer parking spaces will be provided, and as stated, one of which will be van accessible with accessible markings and signage. The building, parking lot, and landscaping will be improved in accordance with the city planning and commission directives. And we will upgrade the exterior of the building with stucco and a fresh coat of paint. All trash removal will be contracted service. It will apply for the city through the city code, and all recommended and required site improvements will be completed before I apply for a city business license for the sale of vehicles. I invest heavily in independence because I know independence and I'm comfortable with it. I trust independence. I know what to expect, and the very thing that attracts me as an investor, certainly the reasonableness of the part of the city management, Lady Chair McLean. I pray your wisdom and leadership and the wisdom of your fellow commissioners as they consider my application. I appreciate your attention during my presentation. Thank you all. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Very thorough. And
Madam-
I know that we all appreciate your investment and reclaiming buildings that are there. That's always such a great thing for a city. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Saida?
I do, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Michelle?
And I guess I've got a follow-up question for staff after that. This property is just a hair over a half of an acre. I recognize you have purchased this property with the intent of selling cars. The first part of my question is, are you going to operate this yourself? Do you have experience operating auto sales businesses, or are you going to be renting this out for somebody else to use?
I will rent it out. My thing is to rent it out, but I am not going to put somebody fly by night in there. I will put a good person in there that's going to be an asset to our city. I mean, my business is right up the street. I will make sure that whoever I put in there will be an asset to our city.
Do you have a tenant lined up yet, or is this more speculative on your part?
I actually have somebody that I've been dealing with. He's been in the automotive business for about 40 years. I have not got a commitment from him. He actually has a lot over in Kansas City, and he's, like I said, he's been there about 40 years, and somebody is purchasing his property from him. And if that goes through, then he will lease my property.
Okay. Can you envision a half an acre site for a commercial business is fairly challenging. Can you imagine any other use for this parcel, just yourself as a local businessman?
Unfortunately, no. It's got such a small a building on it. It would be very, very hard to find a use for this building. I mean, the purposes are just very limited to a less than 500 square foot building.
Or I mean, I suppose you could demolish the building and build a new building, balancing footprint possibilities along with the associated parking needs. That would be the other option.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's a viable aspect as far as monetarily in this right now. I mean, I'm the first person that would love to see, something happen to this area. I mean, I'm invested in this area, but I think for the moment, this is the only use that's viable for this property. I mean, I'm not going to, if it comes to repurposing this area, I don't have a problem with trying to do that, but I just don't think at this point in time, this is the right time.
Okay. Madam Chair, can I ask a question of staff out of order?
Please.
At the time that this business was operating, approximately 2 years ago when a license was in place, were the other 6 car lots also in operation?
I'm not real familiar with the history of all the other car lots. I don't know, Stuart, are you familiar when a couple of those gas stations converted?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I just don't know.
Okay. That's all I have right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll return, Madam Chair, and continue the line of questionings that I started with staff, and I'll ask the applicant. As an investor, did you buy this with the full knowledge that there were 6 other lots, and did you see that as an asset or a liability? And if you care to discuss that.
Well, actually, I bought this as a car lot because I feel like it's an asset that those other car lots around there, just like Nolan Road, when people go looking for a used car, this is primarily an automotive area through here. So people get off the freeway, and this is a good area for them to look for cars. The more this kind of business attracts people for one car lot, they go from one car lot to the other car lot to buy a car. People generally don't drive like particularly. I mean, they do drive to a particular area, but I think the more I envision that would help this area, not hurt it. So yes, I did buy it as being a used car lot with the purpose and thought that it would be a viable as a used car lot.
Does your potential tenant also, I'm sorry, Commissioner Preston, just tagging on your line.
I yield to you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Does your tenant share the same thoughts?
Absolutely.
I yield back to Commissioner Preston.
Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Bryce? Commissioner Young?
Yes. Yeah. Commissioner Bryce works too. It is a out of order question for staff. If that's okay.
Go ahead.
So, I guess similarly to what has come up with the tattoo shops and having a certain amount of tattoo shops that we want to operate in Independence, does Independence have a number for used car lots?
No, we don't. We actually don't have a list for that. It's a matter of going through the special use permit process, and if the council decides that it's wise for another car lot at a particular location, and then they have the discretion to approve the special use permit. But we haven't formulated a strict list or number cap. Not
For
like
what
we
it's worth, I
not like pawn
recommend.
shops, or not like we have pawn shops or other items.
For what it's worth, I recommend that should be done. But that was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Madam Chair, back to staff. Ordinarily, we would like investors to know what to expect. Given that this has been a lot for how many years? 30, 40 years, 50 years?
50 years.
50, almost 50 years. My real concern here is not the number of lots, but are we predictable? In other words, if something has been and it's not new, and we say, I'm just not sure, are we losing our predictability that investors tend to like? And again, I'm still sensitive to the number of lots, but it may be that that's the necessary synergy to make it work. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Saida, I kind of want to follow up with the question that Commissioner Michelle asked you. I know that you bought this lot with the intention of a car lot because that's what it was. But if for some reason, or if tonight we decide that we don't think that is the best use for this space, have you given any real thought to what it could be? Because when you look at the landscape around it and kind of reimagine it, I feel like it's not limited to this use and could be amazing. That's something different. So I guess because I also feel like a half acre is so small for a car lot, even though I know that it was, but have you considered, again, I want to ask that same question, have you thought about anything else?
Well, without significant investment, I don't think it could be anything else. I mean, I mean, without, like I say, without significant investment right there. And I just don't, if the rest of the places around it were being redeveloped, I could see maybe redevelopment, but it's not. I mean, like I said, I'm not opposed to redevelopment. If in a few years, 3 or 4 years, they're redeveloping the area around it, I'm not opposed to redeveloping it. But I just don't feel like I just don't feel like this is the opportunity, especially with our retail climate right now, and the opportunity or the climate in America as far as like retail. I really just don't think this is the time to redevelop it. I can't really think of any other options that it would be viable for the way it is. So I would be hard pressed to figure out what else, other kind of business I could put in that building that would need that size of a lot. So no, I haven't thought of anything else, to be honest with you. I mean, I thought about it a little bit, but I really haven't thought of anything that it would work for, to be honest.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Yeah, I just, Madam Chair, with the 8 recommendations that need to occur in order for him to even in order to be completed before he can get his city license, it's a question for Mr. Saida. Of those 8 recommendations, are there any problems with you doing those 8 things?
No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, whatever you guys agree that was going to make the city better as far as doing something to do this, I don't have an issue with that at all. I'd be happy to listen to anything.
Okay. If Commissioner Preston, do you have something?
No, I just think that this one appears to be practical. I'm looking at 35th Street to the north, right up against the property, 40 Highway to the south against the property. Sometimes the best use is the obvious use, and at least at this point in time. But as an investor, I'm sure if the opportunity comes that he can do better with another project, he would probably do that. And therefore, if there are no further questions, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion in this particular case.
I need to make sure
we can't. We're still going.
We're still going. So
I yield back, Madam Chair.
That's okay. If there are no more questions for the commissioners for right now, anyway, of the applicant, is there anyone on this call who would like to speak in favor of this case? Is there anyone on this call that would like to speak against this case? Okay. Mr. Said, is there anything else you would like to say before we close this case? To close the public hearing?
No. I would just say that if you choose to approve my application, I would make the property look very nice, and it would definitely be an asset to Independence through there. And if in a few years redevelopment comes through there, I would not hold it up. I would be more than happy to work with you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your presentation very much. Okay, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing. Commissioners, are there any comments, discussion that you'd like to have? Or if not, I would entertain a motion.
Commissioner Michelle, are you about to make a motion?
I was just thinking about echoing your comments prior. It seems like a practical use of an underutilized lot that is in my opinion, probably a pretty difficult lot to develop, and in a financially feasible way in the area that it's in now, with the state of, not a disparaging comment, but in sort of the current conditions of the neighborhood. I think if I was investing dollars, it would be highly speculative to go much farther than where it's at now. I do have some concerns as well about the consistency, being consistent and predictable. Would an investor have a reasonable understanding that this would have been a hurdle that it would have to jump through, given the previous use of the property? So those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I was just
I echo
reading.
that, and I think Commissioner Young's statement, if the applicant is willing to subscribe to all the terms and conditions set forth, I think I would probably be in support. Madam Chair?
Yes, what I'd like to do is make a comment. So I was just reading our vision and our mission, and I just wanted to read our mission real quick. It's transforming our community through engagement, innovation, and sustainable services. And one of my concerns is, 40 Highway is not an unknown to us. We know the issues that are on 40 Highway. We know what the city's dealing with, what the police deal with on a daily basis on 40 Highway. And that yes, it is hard to get investors on 40 Highway. It's a complicated situation. And so I do think that while we're making some of these decisions, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, because at some point we've got to figure out how to change that course on 40 Highway. And so I think that's why, I kind of was asking Commissioner Mitchell's question over again, because as someone who, we're also reimagining properties in what I do, and sometimes we get stuck, and it's sometimes easier to rebirth something as it was rather than reimagine what it could be. And it is real estate, it is property, and you can lease property. So I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to tell Mr. Saida what to do, but I think that car lots on 40 Highway are not necessarily the solution for 40 Highway. And I don't know what that means exactly, or how to fix it. Again, I think it's very, very complicated, but I think it's some things that we as a commission really need to take a hard look at. And we'll talk about it a little later on the roundtable, I think, but that's just my 2 cents worth. I just wanted to read that mission again and remind us that, that what we do, the decisions that we make, do affect the future. Like I said, we're paying for the 50s and the 70s right now. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
In the matter of case number 21-200-08, special use permit at 9300 East US 40 Highway for a vehicle dealership, I move for approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Michelle, sorry. All right, City, we're ready for a roll call.
Commissioner Ferguson,
No.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
No. The motion has passed.
Were those with or without the conditions as stated by staff?
Yes, with the conditions proposed by staff.
With the conditions as set forth by staff. Yes. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Seconded
didn't-
as with conditions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Saida.
Thank you all too. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too. Okay, our next case, 21-100-16, is a rezoning of 11445 East Truman Road. A request by Kim Shearer to rezone the property from Industrial 1 to C2 General Commercial. City, will you give us a report, please?
Okay, hang on here while I get this up here. Okay, can everyone see that?
Nope.
Okay, you have to. Okay, let me get on here and share the screen.
We still see us.
Okay, can you?
Now we see it.
Okay, here we go. Now, can you still see that?
Yes.
Okay, this is an application by Todd and Kim Shearer of Shearer Motorsports to rezone a small property on the southwest corner of South Cunningham and East Truman Road. The application is from I-1, which is industrial, to C2 general commercial. The vicinity map shows the location of the property. Okay, this is the zoning for the area. The applicant's property is in the blue rectangle square there on the right. The red property is lands that's already zoned at C2. The slightly purplish color is property that is currently zoned I-1. This section of Truman Road is kind of a mixed bag of C2 properties and industrial properties. Actually, the building next door, or the other half of the building, you could say, and the property to the south were rezoned to C2 just a few years ago. This is the comprehensive plan recommendation for the area. Again, this shows residential neighborhoods for this particular site. The property to the east is actually designated for civic public, because its property, at least directly across Cunningham to the east, is owned by the school district as part of their office complex. The parking garage is on that lot. And then across from that is the actual school building that used to be the hospital. This is an aerial that shows the location. It is the building with the black roof there in the red circle. To the north, there are a couple of commercial buildings, one vacant, another one that has some tenants in it. To the west is the other, you could say, the other half of the building that is currently vacant. And then to the northwest is a building, I believe used to be a lumber yard at one time, that has a thrift store in it. Further to the west is other auto-related uses, auto parts, auto repair type places. To the east is it's actually a small warehouse there that is next to the parking garage, which is on the far right side of the screen, for the school district, which is across the street from that. And then to the northeast is property that used to be part of the water district, or excuse me, water department property. This is the interior of the building. It's not really a very big building. It's less than 4,200 square feet. Most of the building is consumed by this by a garage area that it has a garage door along Truman Road to the south, to the north, and then Cunningham on the east. There is a small living quarters apartment that accesses the door that's on the extreme northeast corner of the building. And it has a small dining room, kitchen, living area, bathroom, bedroom. This is the front of the building itself. It's been vacant for a couple of years. I know it had been used for auto upholstery repair at one time. I actually had a car worked on there many years ago. And then you can see the building next to it. To the left is the small person door that goes to the apartment. And then to the where our city rezoning sign is where the business door is, and then the garage door on the right. This is the the east side of the building. That's along Cunningham. Then you see the other garage door there. There's a couple of parking spaces there, parallel parking along Cunningham, which is somewhat of a narrow street. This is the rear of the building. This particular building is the gray cement block building over stone. The adjoining building to the west is actually all the white building. The parking lot area you see there is not actually owned by the applicant. They don't own very much past the building itself. That's actually owned by the property that owned by the owner that owns the white building there on the left. This is both buildings combined. As you can see, they join here in the middle. And this building at 1144-3 recently was painted and numbered and striped and everything with the idea that it could be leased out hopefully soon. To the left is the parking garage to the school district that used to be in the hospital. Okay, here we're looking down Truman Road to the west. There's that building across the street that used to be, I believe, a lumber yard or something similar. The railroad tracks used to run behind it. This is a building directly across the street from the applicant's property. It's vacant now. This is another building that's slightly to the northeast of the applicant's site. The building is being in some sort of commercial usage and residential as well. Here we're looking up Truman Road to the east. There's the former water department building where you pay your water bill and all that. That is no longer owned by the city. To the right is the parking garage, and then part of the former hospital complex is further up the hill. This is the industrial building that's right across Cunningham to the east. It's currently in the warehouse use, small warehouse, and then again the parking garage for the school district, which has their building on the other side of the street there, other side of Forest. This is the property behind the applicant's site. It's part of the parking lot that's actually owned by the company that owns the building that adjoins this. The first house you see there on the with the brown brick on the front is also actually zoned commercial. Here we're looking down the sort of alley driveway that provides access to the parking lot to the left, and also commercial property that is further to the west. Staff does recommend approval of this application. I didn't mention earlier, but this motorsport, they sell automotive parts for performance vehicles, wheels, tires, well, probably not tires, but wheels, suspensions, carburetors, all that stuff. It's not like a, a typical car parts place like a Western Auto or anything like that. It just deals in performance parts. And the applicant is here to speak on this matter.
Thank you. Any questions, quick questions of commissioners before we bring on the applicant? All right, if the applicant is on, can you please come forward and state your name and address, please?
Hello, my name is Kim Shearer. Our address is 6518 Ridgeway Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like us to know further about your plans and what you're going to do?
No, I'll just clarify a little bit what Mr. Borders had indicated. Our family has been involved in motorsports since the early 1990s when my husband acquired his first race car. Since that time, we've had several different cars and accumulated a significant inventory of performance auto parts, as well as tools, to work on cars. We also have relationships with local and national manufacturers of performance parts and products. And with my husband's retirement from the corporate world, we would like to use our building to operate a business selling new and used performance parts. Sales would be conducted online as well as in person by appointment only. So we don't anticipate an increase in traffic around the building, since in-person sales would be by appointment only. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have a question or two.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, no work on vehicles is going to happen there. This is solely retail.
That is correct.
Okay. And I would imagine that there's going to be some, probably since it's been vacant for a while, some investment and improvement to the interior as well as the exterior.
So
Talk about that a bit.
Yeah. So when we bought the building, we had an alarm system installed. We upgraded electrical in the garage area. And we also, the back wall of the building, when the inspection was done, we were told it needed attention. So we made a significant investment in shoring up that back wall with the beams that are on the exterior. And our intent will be to paint all of that, the back side and then the side, all the same color. White will probably be what we choose to go with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of commissioners? All right. Is there anyone on this call who wishes to speak for this case? Is there anyone on this call that wishes to speak against this case? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion. Thank you. That was magic. I got muted. I'm sure my family wishes they could do that to me. I'm going to close the public portion of this case. Commissioners, any comments, discussion, more questions of staff, or I would entertain a motion?
Madam Chair, I have to just enthusiastically endorse this project. I think it'll be an incredible addition and perhaps the genesis for other developments in the area. So with that, I'll yield to Commissioner Michelle.
I'm just going to echo your sentiments. I've lived in this area for a long time and traversed Truman Road with great frequency, and have lamented sort of the condition of and disrepair of the properties along there. So anything that we can do to improve this corridor will be better.
I agree. I grew up on Truman Road and used to walk down to the milk jug. So this is great. I hope this does, start to trend on that in that area.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
in light of the comments of my fellow commissioners and my own comments, I would like to make a motion.
Okay,
In the matter of case number 21-100-16, rezoning at property 11445 East Truman Road from industrial to general commercial, I move for approval.
is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferguson. Okay, we are ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Madam Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 21-100-16 has passed. Thank you so much and best of luck. And Merry Christmas. Okay,
Thank you all so much. Merry Christmas.
thank you. The roundtable, the next meeting is January 11th, 2022. Commissioner Preston doesn't know it yet, but he may have to run that meeting because I will be in Atlanta on a buying trip for the retails. So,
And Madam Chair, I will be in town.
get ready. The next thing I kind of want to bring up is that I think that, to Commissioner Young's point, I think that as a commission, it would be appropriate for us to ask the city to do a report on car lots. Like tattoo parlors, like car washes, kind of like, what is the tipping point for a city, as we're having this housing company look at, what is best for independence for housing and that type of thing. I think it's appropriate that we kind of look at this, how much whether it's I guess what I'm saying is maybe we think about this and we bring it up at the next meeting with better statements or requests for the report, things like how many special uses should we allow in a situation like this? How many car lots can a zone handle? Like 440 highway, is this too many? Are we becoming known as the car wash city? And is that beneficial for this city? I just think it's time and would be appropriate for the Planning Commission to ask for a report on that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I could not agree more. And there has been a steady drumbeat from this commission putting that idea forward. And perhaps your nudging will perhaps bring that to fruition.
So I think, I know Jordan is not on the call. Maybe Brian or Stuart could help me out a little bit, or the counselor. How can we form a question or request in a report for the city?
What
Is it
were you
something
looking for? Were you looking for like the numbers of used car lots along corridors, or a recommendation, or could you elaborate on what you're hoping to get?
If there's a commissioner who has better words tonight, please step in.
I think, and I'll just for some perspective, as still what I would consider a freshman commissioner, a year and a half in now, I'm still learning something every day. In absence of some specific guidance, something in the UDO, an ordinance, without lack of guidance in writing, I feel sometimes it's a little nebulous or a little gray to enforce, certain things. So, Commissioner, Chairwoman McLean, I believe what we're really looking for is some sort of a report, analysis, guidance, something in writing. I don't know if it becomes an ordinance of some sort, similar to the tattoo parlors or other similar uses, that will help guide our work with some clarity. And, you know, I'm not sure what the path forward is. Commissioner Preston made the comment about predictability and, you know, giving investors, people who purchase property, an understanding of what the rules of engagement will be. In this case tonight, I believe there's probably an expectation that it was a car lot before. It could be a car lot again. And, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, that investor invested a fair amount of money at their own risk without that knowledge. So those are kind of my thoughts as it relates to the specific question. I don't know if I clarified it well enough for you.
That is exactly what I was trying to say. So I think, like, I'm not sure how best to proceed. Do we just kind of think about it each, and then when we come back at the next meeting during the roundtable, maybe discuss it a little more in depth, and then come up with request, recommendation, guidelines that we can formally ask the city to do for us? Is that kind of how it works? Counselor, does that make sense?
Yes, Commissioner McLean, what I was thinking in response to Commissioner Young's comment, and seems the whole commission kind of thought on this, is that if staff could produce a report of how many car lots do we have, if we can get a map of where they're centrally located, where they're at, and you mentioned something about zones. You know, obviously Nolan Road is a big car lot. I wouldn't have thought that, you know, western part of 40 Highway is a used car lot zone, but after seeing this map, I'm seeing there are quite a few there. So maybe that would be an area that maybe that's okay in, for you all to make an informed decision. I think you would need that information of how many do we have, where are they located, how much really land space is being used up by those car lots, what is surrounding them. And then during your discussion, if you feel, hey, maybe it's not as many as we think, you know, we see with our eyes, we think, oh, they're everywhere, but maybe it's not really as many as you think. If you want to set a max number that the city can have, like we do with tattoo parlor shops, obviously that's the discussion you all can have, and a recommendation you can make to the city council, and then they can take it upon themselves to act upon it if necessary. Does that sound like something that the staff can provide by the next meeting? Or, and
I think maybe just an update with maybe a proposed path forward. I don't know that between now, with the holidays between now and January 11th, a whole lot's going to be achievable. My recommendation would be to come with maybe a recommended path forward, and maybe some guidance on where we might all take this. Does that make sense, Chairwoman McLean?
Yes, and I kind of want to add to that too, because one of the other thoughts that we've had is maybe what would help, and this is probably where we need the city's kind of research on to see what other cities similar size do, but should we cap it? Like, what is the minimum amount of acreage a car dealership should have in our city? And maybe even that small thing would help us know how to react to each case. You know, maybe a half acre is just not big enough anymore. I don't know. So yes.
I could interject here. When we adopted the new code in 2009, there was a minimum acreage of 1.5 acres. In the 1.5 or 2 years after that, it was changed to where you could get special use permit for property less than 1.5 acres. I'd also like to state that actually 24 Highway has more used car sales lots than 23rd Street, 40 Highway, Nolan Road. We actually did a survey a couple of years ago. There is just probably 40 or 50 types of auto-related uses along 24 Highway. Used car lots, auto parts, auto repair, all of that is just incredible on 24 highway.
Yeah, so that I mean, it is multi-layered, but that is another thing I think that would be really helpful for the city to do some research on is how many is too many, and backing up from a bird's eye view, is that part of the contributing problem to 23rd and 40 highway and 24 highway, 40 highway, 23rd street and 24 highway? I mean, is that some of the contributing issues? And so like I said, maybe going back to that 1.5 acres is the smartest way to deal with it. I don't know, but I think that's what would be helpful for the city to kind of look into, and then maybe report back to us, and then we could make a recommendation to the council. So that's a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would assume within that 1.5 acres, there's, depending on zoning use, et cetera, there's probably I would imagine a stipulation for permeable versus impermeable. So even 1.5 acres would, for a new development would not be allowed to be fully paved, as an example. There's requirements for green space and landscaping minimums, et cetera, which is completely impossible at that parcel we talked about tonight.
Yeah, you're right.
No, I like the suggestions.
Okay, so we'll let you have Christmas and New Year's, but then we got to get to work. Anybody else have any thoughts on that, or anything else to add to the city checklist?
As I nothing for that. I have a more aspirational thought coming out of things going through my head during this particular case. I think about Nolan Road and the CID that was instituted that specifically helped promote redevelopment and a higher level of investment, higher level of quality along there. And I think we all, as residents, understand where the sort of the stinker corridors are within town. The areas that need help. We talked about Truman Road as being that stretch certainly between Sterling and the Square, really stretches all the way back down to Van Horn. 24 Highway from Sugar Creek in is another one. These are areas that I have long thought are the kind of the gateways of our community. And Nolan Road even, and some of these other areas, they just don't put our best foot forward when you're bringing folks into our historic core and sort of the charm of our community. And I know this is not a problem for us to solve here, but aspirationally, I think that's the kind of commitment from the city we need in order to help prod development in the direction that I think everyone would like it to go. And I'll just leave it at that.
I think that's great, and that's important. I think that's why it's really nice to have these guideposts and help us. Do we say yes? Do we say no? Do we go out on a limb? And I don't know. Commissioner Young?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Commissioner Michelle and I started at the same time, and I feel like I learned something at every meeting, but I think something that I feel like comes up every time, and including tonight with this used car lot, and in my opinion, like, we need another used car lot, like we need another car wash. But when we hear from the applicant that says, I bought this property, he said himself that he had invested $12,000 on this property, and then so we're already in a spot as a commission that it's like, if we turn this down, then we're basically just saying that the $12,000 that this guy put in on a property that he owns now doesn't mean anything and was for nothing. And it I don't know if it's realistic at all, but I would encourage any business owner or people working through business licenses to get ahead of these things from our standpoint, from a planning commission standpoint who has to approve these things, because time and time again, we've run across Airbnbs where they've invested their own money and we've had to turn them down. And and there was even the time with the business on Lee Summit Road where she told us that it wasn't an operating business, but then over the course of the meeting admitted that she's been operating the business, but it's already too late by the time we hear about it. And so it may not be realistic to think that people can be proactive about what they want out of their business and out of their investment, because it's not going to be up to me. Like, I'm not going to tell a guy that you just wasted $12,000 to make your property look a little bit better. But it is like, does that area need another used car lot? Probably not. But if people can be proactive about these things and get ahead of these problems, and I think some of this could be solved. So, but I just think we're running across this at every meeting of just kind of things are happening, and then they either we approve it or we deny it, but it's already kind of too late with terms of the money that their own money that they've put into it. So that's all.
Yeah, and I would say that I don't want to discount the responsibility of these applicants to do their own due diligence and move, judiciously decide whether or not they're going to buy a piece of property, invest in it, redevelop it, whatever it might be. I can't tell you the number of calls I get every month from somebody who's like, I've bought this building, I've put a bunch of money into it. Now the building official tells me I have to do X. It's like, well, you probably should have talked to the building official first. But that's, I think having the roadmap in place for people who are wanting to start and build businesses and invest, so they know what the rules of engagement are. And, you can't make people pick up the phone or go visit planning staff, but I think we need to do what we can to have the roadmap in place and the guidance and the ordinances in place for us to be able to make these decisions with, easily and with confidence.
Yep. I think that would help a lot because the guilt is real.
Mm-hmm.
It is very real, but yeah, I think that in this category specifically, there is, even in short-term rentals, we're seeing so many out of town, out of state people who, because they're seeing cheap properties in Independence, they're looking at it as an investment. Well, it doesn't really help Independence. And so I think that putting some of these guardrails up will help mitigate some of that. At least that's the hope, because it's really getting to be an issue. And we're going to have to, I don't know whether that's our job or exactly who's on first, but it's probably a team effort, like Commissioner Young and Commissioner Michelle say, like it begins at the city with some good vetting and information before they get to this point. Okay. Next. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to state, I just did a quick search on the city's website, like starting a business, and there's a 21-page PDF, tells you everything you need to know starting a business. So the information is there. Obviously can't lead a horse to water or make them drink anyway. So it's there just for anyone's listening.
It is there. Thank you. Yep. I've filled it out 20 times or 16 times, 7, maybe it's 19. I don't even know. A lot. Anyway. Okay. The next thing we need to just kind of revisit is, when would you all like to go back in person? Would you like to wait until after January? Do you want to talk about it again in January and not make a decision tonight? Or would you like to make a decision tonight?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
The number of cases of COVID-19, whether they're the new variant or Delta, the number of cases appear to be increasing. And although technology has put forward medications that might mitigate the hardship and the deadly effects of it. I think we've learned a lot here. We have learned not to put commissioners and staff at risk. And I think we have been quite productive in the process. It's my humble opinion that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. It may not be getting the headlines, but we are still losing over 1,000 people a day, and there are over 100,000 new cases per day. And while we're not talking about masks or any other of those items, I think we have, as a commission, we have delivered on what we are obligated to do. And I just don't see a reason to put these commissioners and the public at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Has city council or other commissions opted to go back to meeting in person?
City council is in person. The Arts Commission is still on Zoom. I think some of the other commissions might be meeting in person as well, but I am not 100% sure. City probably has a better answer.
I know the Public Utility Advisory Board has been meeting in person.
Yeah, the City Board of Adjustment has also.
I don't have a huge concern. I understand the numbers that Commissioner Preston stated. I will defer to the greater good and the majority of what the commission wants to do. I'm dying to see you all in person. As it's a year and a half now, I have yet to sit together in fellowship. So, but it's, if we want to wait another month and make a call at the end of January, I'm okay with that.
Any other thoughts?
I would also like to meet in person. And the first thing I'm doing is shaking everybody's hand. But I'm also, the thing is, I'm boosted. So it's like, what more? I can't do anything more. You know?
I'm ready to get back in person too. But I see the wisdom in maybe just seeing how January goes.
All right, so let's do this. Why don't we wait until the January, the next meeting? I already forgot when it was, January 11th.
January, how about January 25th, Madam Chair?
To come back in person January 25th?
To consider.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
I would say we can bring it up again at the next meeting, and if we are ready, then we can come back January 25th. If we want to wait a little while, that's fine.
Just to know, it will usually take about 2 meetings before we can make that change because our public notices go out and they have to state whether they're virtual or in person.
Oh yeah,
So
I
if we
forgot
made
about
the decision on January 11th, we couldn't have the January 25th meeting in person.
I think that's fine.
Is it an all or nothing? Is it a situation where, we could not still have a hybrid situation for people to be able to listen in and appear? Or do we, again, having not met in person for a year and a half, what procedurally, what is the right thing to do?
The city doesn't have a hybrid option at this time. The city council, I believe, or the city clerk has told us that it either has to be in person or online.
Okay, thank you.
That is my understanding as well. So you want to do the next meeting Zoom, and then, not Zoom, and then we'll discuss it at that meeting, whether we go back in person 2 weeks after that meeting. Does that sound good?
I'm okay with taking a measured approach. Let's talk about it on the 11th. And if, knowing that we have to take a couple meetings to get to actually being in person, let's talk about it on the 11th. If everybody's comfortable, we'll transition when the time is right. If we want to wait, we'll talk about it on the 25th. Same sort of thing. We'll keep going until everybody's comfortable.
Sounds good. I'm also anxious to sit with you all. Okay. Is there anything else for the greater good?
Merry
Well,
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, everybody, for your giving generosity. And Santa sitting over there on my, I don't know which rectangle to my right, has a lot of work to do. Thank you, Commissioner Preston, for being Santa Claus during our living windows. You were fantastic.
That's the first time I've publicly admitted that I was Santa. But it was one of the great moments in my life.
Don't tell the kids.
Don't tell the kids.
It was fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
We'll see you
Christmas.
after the new year.
Bye, everybody.